Hello and welcome. You are listening to From Here with a View, a We Are the Seeds Philadelphia podcast. My name is Zachariah Julian. We recently had the honor of visiting with the amazing Paula Peters in Mashpee, Massachusetts on Cape Cod. Paula Peters is a modern traditional Wampanoag woman. For more than a decade, Paula was a journalist for the Cape Cod Times and has produced several scholarly papers on Wampanoag history, driven by a passion for preserving the story of her people from the tribal perspective. Her book, Mashpee 9, A Story of Cultural Justice, can be purchased online at wampanoagtradingpostandgallery.com. Here now is Paula Peters.
This is Shoestring Bay, and this is where, when I was a kid with my dad, we would come and go clamming and specifically looking for crabs. And you could be in this bay and you could look down and see the bottom, but look at what you see now. I mean, I can hardly see the paddle through the muck. And this is all eutrophication from all these houses that you see around here that are built up. None of these were here, and it's just built up the muck in the water. We can no longer, there's mussels and clams here, but you can't eat them. Wanikisak, Natasawi Sonkwabin, Nutamas Masapiak. Good day, my name is Paula Peters. My traditional name is Sonkwabin, which means cool wind, and I am from Mashpee. So I grew up here in this community. I've lived here most of my life. I'm 62 years old, so I've seen tremendous change in this community, and I can't really say that any of it has been good for our community or our environment. It's just been too dramatic, too crazy, too much development, and we saw that coming. Back in the 70s, when I was a teenager, this place was just starting to be recognized by the developers, and they were hungry for every piece of land that they could tear up and build up. And there was an effort by the tribe, the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe, to curtail that development, and they just fought us at every level, from the local planning and municipal level to the government level to the courts, where we tried to recover our ancestral homelands, and they fought us and are still fighting us to this day. So we're at Punkhorn Point. This is filthy. It's not. It's full of muck, full of eutrophication and nitrates and stuff that make it so that you can't eat the clams. I mean, when we clammed here, it was just a sandy beach. This is kind of disgusting, actually. I mean, look at this. I'm going to see if they have any, if there's any here. Nope, I don't even see any. This used to be just like a solid wall of mussels. And we'd be in here in this water. Again, the water was clear. And now it's just murky and nasty. And shellfishing is banned here now. I mean, I could dig a clam here, but I wouldn't want to eat it. Yeah, shellfishing is definitely not something you can do here. So it's like it's a way of life that's been eradicated in my lifetime. And it was just this beautiful, pristine place for fishing and for beaching and just enjoying ourselves. And now we can't go to those places anymore. Well, we can go there, but we can't shellfish, and many of those shorelines are so degraded that who would want to sit there and swim or enjoy the shoreline? Also, the estuaries, the two major estuaries that are the waterways of Mashpee, last year a water report was done and we discovered that there are no places left of quote unquote high water quality. And the water has been degraded so much that we can't do fishing in a lot of these places. And I still paddle through Shoestring Bay. I paddle down the Santuit River. The problem really is the unbridled growth of Mashpee. So in the mid 70s, population of about 2,500. Year-round population now is 15,000, but in the summertime, that population more than doubles to 36,000 people in this community. The obvious impacts are the crowding on the beaches. The traffic is unbearable for a small community like this. I mean, I grew up in Mashpee, there were no traffic lights. We didn't need any. We had no traffic lights. Now there are traffic jams everywhere in the summertime because people just are flooding here, and a lot of these homes that have been built they're not even year-round homes. They're just summer homes. When I was young, Mashpee was a lot of narrow roads, Cape Cod cottages, dirt roads. Most of the roads were dirt roads. It was just a really small rural community. Yeah, the first impact that was realized by the Wampanoag community of all of these uber wealthy people coming in and building along the coastlines was that they were blocking our access to the waterways for our sustenance, because for thousands upon thousands of years, Wampanoag people have lived here and sustained ourselves off of shellfishing, fishing off the coastlines, and fishing in these bays and estuaries. And suddenly these places were all inaccessible to us. And we had to fight for that. We had to fight for our rights to get back to the waterways. And these big, huge mansions that are built all over the place, there are septic systems, not a sewer system. We don't have a town sewer yet, which we've been trying to get for many years now. It looks like one's been approved, but it's going to take 5 to 10 years before that can even have an impact. What's happened is Mashpee has truly become recolonized. I mean, we use the term gentrification. Gentrification is just a fancy word for being recolonized. In come all of these really, really super rich people, and they're building these mega mansions, and the cost of living here has gone way up as a result of the property values skyrocketing, and people who have lived here for generations and generations are struggling to stay because they can't afford the homes. They can't afford to maintain the homes that they're in because the taxes are going up. So that is a true challenge for the tribe members, because our circumstances haven't dramatically changed, but for the fact that our property values have skyrocketed out of control. The population of tribe members that we have, like 2,500 members of our tribe, and I think only about a third of those lives in the region of Mashpee. Our housing department has built affordable housing development, which is bringing home some of our tribe members, but we really would need to triple, quadruple that in order to really have an impact in getting people to be able to move home. Tribe members have had to abandon their homes here and move to cities like New Bedford or Boston or Worcester because it's just impossible to maintain our lifestyles here. Land is so crucial to a people's cultural identity and their traditions are, all focus around our ancestral homeland. And the more that people are forced out, and it becomes more and more difficult for people to come home to participate in any of our ceremonies, to gather together for any social gatherings, and to maintain our lifestyles here. And that was one of the reasons why back in the 1970s, 1960s really, when they started to realize that change was coming. Originally, the town of Mashpee was a plantation, which was an early term for reservation. They called the reservations in this region, in the Northeast, plantations. And it was promised to us forever, to the Wampanoag people forever. And township actually was forced upon the tribe back in 1870. And from the time forward of township, many changes happened that enabled outsiders to come and take the land from the tribal people. Another colonization happened because suddenly tribe members who were not taught about civic responsibility, things like paying taxes or how to obtain mortgages, or what did it mean to have a mortgage. They lost land through non-payment of taxes. They lost land because mortgages weren't satisfied in time, or things like that. These are people that probably had to put an X on a deed or a document because they couldn't read or write. But they were being convinced to let go of their lands I just call them land grabs that happened between township and that first 100 years. By 1970, much of the town had been lost to developers and outsiders. And when they saw that happening, the first real sign that they were losing control was the town offices, which had been held almost exclusively by Wampanoags up until the 1960s, were suddenly being infiltrated by outside residents, non-natives, white residents who were developers. And they set the town on a track toward growth. And with the loss of that control in town government, the tribe established the tribal council. I would say prior to that, town government was really tribal council. The selectmen, the planning board, the health department, the fire department, the police, they were all Wampanoags. So we didn't need a tribal council. We had this town leadership that was really all our tribe members. And when that started to change, the tribal council then was established. And the tribal council then tried to sue to get our tribal lands restored to us that had been promised to us forever. Those tribal lands that were given to us in the form of that plantation and taken away in the form of township. And at that time, when they gave the land back to the tribe members, when they established township, they gave each head of household 60 acres, but they didn't give them any explanation of, okay, how do you manage that 60 acres? How do you keep that safe? There was no explanation for that. I think it was absolutely intentional to set the whole tribe up for failure. The only way that they were going to be able to get at these lands was to make the tribe members citizens and make their lands part of a town. And they did that, and they were successful. So this whole town was at one point an Indian reservation that was forcibly closed and made into a town back in 1870. And within 100 years, was taken over by outsiders. Land back, yeah. The tribal council sued for return of land back in 1976. The federal court that we brought the land claim in turned the case back upon the tribe and said that we had to prove that we were recognized by the federal government. There was no process at that time for establishing or reestablishing federal acknowledgement because we didn't know that we weren't acknowledged. It took about 30 years to go through what I call the most cumbersome and expensive legal litmus test known to man, which is the federal acknowledgement process. Once the tribe did achieve, finally, after spending just gazillions of dollars, oodles of money, I don't know how you describe it, that belonged to investors. That's the other part of this story that I don't know if we can even have time to get into. But in order to achieve the federal acknowledgement, we had to align ourselves with gaming backers who had a ton of money and wanted to help the tribe to build a casino so that we could get the money we needed to sustain ourselves. And so there's that whole politics, which is really, really ugly. I never really wanted to see us become engaged with gaming because I just knew that it would bring out the worst in us, and it did. But that's a whole nother story. So once we had our federal acknowledgement, in order to appease the town, so that the town wouldn't object to us getting our federal acknowledgement, which we needed to appease the gaming backers in order to build a casino, the then tribe leadership pushed forward a proposal to promise the town that we would not sue for any of the return of any of our land in Mashpee. Bling! Whoa, wait a second. I'm in the... I was like, wait a second. That's what we started this whole thing for in the first place. We were pursuing federal acknowledgement because we needed that in order to sue for the return of our homelands. And then we finally get the federal acknowledgement, and there's so much greed in tribal leadership that they want to deny what the purpose was to begin with so that they can appease the town fathers who won't then object to our acknowledgement. It just was like a bundle of bullshit. So technically, we're in a position now where we have this federal acknowledgement, but we can't sue because of a promise that was made by corrupt leadership of the tribe at the time, that were just so greedy that all they wanted was to be able to build a casino, which, by the way, never happened and may never happen. So here we sit, acknowledged by the federal government, still without the return of major lands. It's a vicious cycle. I am not involved in tribal government at all. I'm not a political leader. And what you're asking me is, how good is that promise to the town that we aren't going to sue for the return of our land, given all the promises they broke to us? I don't think that promise is worth the paper it's written on. I think we still could sue for the return of our lands, and we have every right to. But everybody in tribe leadership is kind of married to this idea that, well, we said we weren't going to do that, and so now we're not going to do that, but, this place just keeps getting developed and more developed and more developed. I mean, those water quality reports that came out last year and this year that just show that, we couldn't even go swimming in our local pond because the water quality had degraded so badly. And that was in July, at the time when you'd want to be going swimming. And you can't even tell the town that to stop building. There's build out for this town happened decades ago. That was the point at which they needed to stop building and stop creating more septic waste in order to protect the bays and estuaries. And they rode roughshod over build out and just kept going, and they keep going. And even after receiving that report of the water degradation being so bad in this region, and the primary cause of that is individual homes that are built with septic systems and with big sprawling lawns and gardens, golf courses, all this adding to the overall nutrient level in the soil and going into the bays and estuaries. And they can't even say no to that. They can't even recognize that that's the problem. Let's put a moratorium on building. That would just make people go nuts here. Because again, the town is still run by developers, or the developers' interests. So we're stuck between a septic system and a hard place. My hope is that people will begin to recognize the damage that's being done to the environment, and that there be a stronger coalition in Mashpee of like-minded people. At this point, even, it's not just natives that are raising the bullshit flag and saying stop. It's not just native people that are saying no to more development. It is our neighbors and our friends who are seeing what's happened. I mean, all this has happened in my lifetime. And it's really disgraceful to see. And there are others that are recognizing that. And those who aren't so, those people who see what's going on and want to help, that's where my hope lies. Also in efforts to conserve land, local conservation groups like the Native Land Conservancy, which is doing tremendous work to purchase open space land for conservation. And the more we can do things like that, and of course the development of a wastewater treatment facility here in Mashpee, that's going to be key to correcting some of the problems. But they say that the wastewater treatment facility may take several years to get up and running, and then it'll probably be 4 or 5 years before we'll see a reversal of the impacts on the estuaries. So maybe in my lifetime, I'll be able to see my paddle in Shoestring Bay again as I dip into the water and it disappears in the muck. Maybe I'll be able to see clear water at Mashpee Pond again. I don't know. I just don't know. But that's been the hope.
Hetin to Paula Peters, Mark Harding, the Peters family, Courtney Turner, and the Mashpee Wampanoag Indian Museum. To purchase a copy of Paula Peters' book, Mashpee 9, A Story of Cultural Justice, please visit wampanoagtradingpostandgallery.com. My name is Zachariah Julian. Thank you for joining us for this episode of From Here with a View, a We Are the Seeds Philadelphia podcast.